Hi. Everyone noticed that VeChain has suddenly started moving higher again? After weeks of uncertainty across the cryptocurrency market, VET has quietly gained momentum and is once again attracting attention from traders and investors. Over the last 24 hours, the token has posted a noticeable increase, outperforming many other assets and sparking discussions about whether something significant is happening behind the scenes. But what exactly is driving this move?
Is VeChain rising because of a major announcement? Is there a hidden catalyst that most investors have missed? Or is this simply another reaction to broader market conditions? In today's analysis, we're going to break everything down step by step. We'll examine the state of the overall crypto market, look at the latest regulatory developments surrounding VeChain, explore the growing activity within its ecosystem, and discuss why traders are suddenly paying attention to VET once again. By the end of this video, you'll have a much clearer understanding of what is really happening and whether this recent price increase could be the beginning of something larger or simply another short-term market bounce.
Let's get started. This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. To understand VeChain's recent performance, we first need to look at the broader cryptocurrency market, because the overall environment often has a huge influence on individual assets. During the past 24 hours, the total cryptocurrency market experienced a strong recovery. The combined value of all digital assets increased significantly, rising about 2.86%, from roughly $2.20 trillion to $2.26 trillion. When this happens, it usually creates positive momentum throughout the market. Bitcoin begins moving higher, Ethereum follows, and eventually many altcoins start benefiting from the improved sentiment. This is especially true for mid-sized cryptocurrencies like VeChain. Projects in this category often react more aggressively than Bitcoin during short-term rallies. When traders become more optimistic, capital tends to flow from large assets into medium-sized projects that offer greater upside potential. As a result, coins like VET can experience larger percentage gains even when there is no major project-specific news. In many ways, VeChain's recent move appears to be partially connected to this broader market recovery. The overall environment simply became more favorable for risk assets. And speaking of risk assets, there were several important developments occurring outside the cryptocurrency industry that also helped improve sentiment. Recent geopolitical headlines suggested progress toward reducing tensions in the Middle East. Reports indicating improved stability and the reopening of important shipping routes helped calm investor concerns about global economic disruption. As these developments unfolded, traditional financial markets responded positively. Oil prices moved lower. Stock market futures strengthened. Investor confidence improved. Historically, these conditions tend to support speculative assets, including cryptocurrencies. When fear begins to fade and confidence starts returning to financial markets, investors become more willing to take on risk. That often leads to increased demand for cryptocurrencies, particularly altcoins. Bitcoin responded positively to this shift in sentiment, moving back toward recent highs. Ethereum also gained strength, and many alternative cryptocurrencies followed the same path. VeChain was one of those beneficiaries, gaining around 4% over the last 24 hours. Another important factor was the improvement in market psychology. Various sentiment indicators showed that investor fear was beginning to ease. Just a short time ago, many participants were extremely cautious. Concerns about economic uncertainty, market weakness, and geopolitical risks had pushed sentiment toward pessimistic levels. However, as prices stabilized and began recovering, confidence slowly started returning. It's important to note that the market has not entered a state of extreme optimism. This is not the type of environment where everyone suddenly believes prices can only go higher. Instead, what we're seeing resembles a relief rally. Investors are becoming less fearful, but they are still cautious. And sometimes, these transitional periods can create strong, short-term opportunities for assets that have already been heavily discounted. That brings us back to VeChain. Although VET's gain attracted attention, its performance remains within the normal range for a mid-cap cryptocurrency during a market-wide recovery. The move is certainly positive, but it does not necessarily require an extraordinary explanation. However, broader market strength was not the only factor supporting VeChain. The project also benefited from a fresh narrative that generated excitement among investors and community members. One of the most important developments involved VeChain's continued focus on regulatory compliance. The official VeChain team highlighted that regulatory readiness remains a core part of its long-term strategy. More specifically, the project emphasized alignment with Europe's evolving cryptocurrency regulations under the MiCA framework. For those unfamiliar with MiCA, it represents one of the most significant regulatory structures being implemented for digital assets within the European Union. As governments around the world continue developing rules for cryptocurrencies, regulatory clarity is becoming increasingly important. Institutional investors, exchanges, custodians, and financial service providers all prefer working with assets that have clear legal standing. This is where VeChain's messaging gained attention. According to the project, both VET and VTHO were among the earliest digital assets recorded within the relevant European regulatory framework. From an investor's perspective, this creates a powerful narrative. The idea is simple. If a cryptocurrency demonstrates a willingness to adapt to regulatory requirements before many competitors, it may be viewed as less risky over the long term. Now, it's important to remain realistic. Regulatory recognition does not automatically generate higher prices overnight. It does not immediately create massive adoption, and it certainly does not guarantee future success. However, it can improve investor confidence. In a market where many projects still face uncertainty regarding future regulations, any sign of clarity can become a meaningful advantage. For traders looking for reasons to become optimistic, VeChain's compliance-focused messaging provided exactly the type of narrative they were looking for. At the same time, additional ecosystem developments helped maintain attention on the project. Several community-driven discussions gained traction across social media platforms. One topic that generated excitement involved content showing VeChain-related initiatives receiving visibility within high-profile venues associated with government and institutional circles. While these appearances should not be interpreted as official endorsements, they nevertheless contributed to the perception that VeChain continues to maintain connections with real-world organizations and institutions. Perception matters in financial markets. Even when a development has limited immediate impact, increased visibility can strengthen existing narratives and attract additional attention from investors. Beyond social media discussions, there were also reports highlighting growing activity within the VeChain ecosystem. Community tracking tools showed an increase of over 1,100 new wallets created in a short period. This suggested continued participation from users joining or interacting with the network. At the same time, ongoing VTHO token burns exceeded 41,000 VTHO, reflecting activity occurring on-chain. For many investors, these metrics serve as indicators that the network remains active rather than stagnant. Although no single statistic proves long-term growth, a collection of positive signals can gradually strengthen confidence. Cross-chain infrastructure was another topic receiving attention. Discussions surrounding interoperability solutions emphasized VeChain's ability to connect with assets and ecosystems beyond its native blockchain. As cryptocurrency adoption evolves, interoperability continues becoming increasingly important. Users want flexibility. Developers want access to multiple networks. Investors want ecosystems capable of interacting with broader blockchain infrastructure. Projects that successfully participate in this interconnected environment may benefit from expanded utility and accessibility. Another source of short-term enthusiasm came from technical analysis. Several market analysts identified support zones where buyers appeared willing to step in. According to these interpretations, VeChain had reached areas where downside momentum could potentially slow while creating conditions for a rebound. Technical traders often focus heavily on these levels. When enough participants identify similar support areas, buying activity can increase around those zones. This doesn't guarantee a rally. However, it can contribute to short-term price movements when combined with improving market sentiment. And that is exactly what appears to have happened. The broader market was recovering, investor fear was easing, regulatory narratives were gaining traction, community engagement remained active. Technical traders were watching key levels. Together, these factors created an environment supportive of a moderate upward move. What's particularly important to understand is that VeChain's recent rise was not driven by a single explosive catalyst. There was no massive exchange listing. There was no groundbreaking partnership announcement. There was no revolutionary protocol upgrade suddenly changing the project's fundamentals. Instead, the move appears to be the result of multiple, smaller factors aligning at the same time. Sometimes that's all a market needs. When overall sentiment improves and a project already has positive narratives circulating around it, even modest developments can become enough to attract fresh buying interest. Looking ahead, investors will likely continue monitoring several key areas. First, they will watch whether Bitcoin can maintain its strength because broader market direction remains one of the biggest influences on altcoins. Second, they will pay attention to regulatory developments in Europe and other major jurisdictions. If VeChain continues positioning itself as a compliance-friendly blockchain, that narrative could remain attractive to investors. Third, market participants will observe ecosystem activity to determine whether user growth, network engagement, and adoption metrics continue improving over time. And finally, traders will closely watch technical support and resistance levels as they evaluate whether this recovery can extend further. For now, VeChain's recent performance appears to reflect a combination of favorable market conditions and project-specific optimism. Neither factor alone fully explains the move, but together, they provide a logical explanation for why VET managed to gain momentum while attracting renewed attention from the cryptocurrency community. To summarize everything we've discussed, VeChain's recent rise appears to be driven by a combination of broader market recovery, improving investor sentiment, growing confidence in risk assets, and fresh attention surrounding the project's regulatory positioning within Europe. Additional support came from community activity, ecosystem developments, increased visibility, and technical trading setups that encouraged buying interest. While there is no single headline event responsible for the move, the combination of these factors created a favorable environment for VET to advance. Whether this momentum continues will depend largely on broader market conditions, future regulatory developments, and VeChain's ability to maintain positive engagement across its ecosystem. For now, the latest price action suggests that investors are once again paying close attention to one of the cryptocurrency market's longest-standing enterprise-focused blockchain projects. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next update. See you in the next one.